In front of you, we have two meetings scheduled. A special town meeting with 2 articles on it in the beginning of what you have for paperwork. And then after that, we will start a whole new meeting for the annual. Now, the quorum for special town meetings is 200 registered voters. It is clear to me from this vantage point that we are in excess of 200 registered voters. Unless I hear an objection, I will dispense with me taking the time to count, and we'll proceed into the special town meeting. First of all, I'd like to introduce your stage members for this evening's meeting. On your far right, newly elected Selectman Bill Conley. Bill, congratulations on your election and welcome to the Clinton Board of Selectmen. Select Person Kathleen Sheridan. Selectman Kevin Haley. Vice Chairman of the Board, Jim LeBlanc. Selectmen's Administrator Michael Ward. Town Solicitor Robert Gibbons. On your far side here is Julie Kilbride, who is our clerk stenographer. And I'm John Hogan, and I'll be your moderator for this evening. The Finance Committee, I'll introduce over in the far corner over here on your right. Chairperson James Tumalo. Barry Whitney. Patricia Bonsi, Mark Elworthy, and newly appointed member, Attorney William McGrail. Bill, congratulations on your appointment and welcome to the Clinton Finance Committee. I'd also like to congratulate a few people who have served your town for many years and have moved on in varying capacities. Former Planning Board Chairman Philip Duffy, who served for many, many years on your planning board. He is decided to take a little break from town service, and we wish him well in all future endeavors. Also like to congratulate School Superintendent Jerry Gaw after over 30 years of service to our school system. We wish him well in retirement and the future as well. Jerry, congratulations. Your former economic developer, Donald Lowe, as most of you know, has resigned after many years as your economic developer to take a position as the town manager in the town of Bolton. Don, congratulations on your appointment and welcome back. The only people in the hall right now are registered voters of the town of Clinton or people who have been given prior permission by myself to observe the proceedings from the visitor section in the back of the balcony. To speak tonight, please be recognized and go to one of the microphones. To speak, please state your name and address before speaking. All questions, comments, or discussion should be directed to the moderator. I will redirect that to the appropriate person for a response. Please state your name and address before speaking. Please note personalities in your remarks and try to keep your comments to the article under discussion. The only hands that will be counted during hand votes are for those who are people who are seated in the hall. Standee votes will not be counted. Also, under the category of new and improved, you all received a green card when you checked in this evening. This was put together by your town clerk, Phil Boyce, who after some investigation, we were working to try and find ways to smooth out the process and speed things up. So if you look at your card, okay, in order to vote, on hand votes, you need to raise your hand with your card in your hand. That will make sure that everybody who's voting is actually checked in. And second of all, if and when we have a ballot vote, you'll notice there are 6 checkoff marks on your ballot. You no longer will have to recheck in. You will come forward with a green card, and then someone will be up front to just punch out, let's say the first one, which would be number 1. When it's punched out, someone else will hand you a ballot and you vote with it. We won't have to go through the process, laborious process, of actually having you recheck in again. And I want to thank Phil Boyce for putting this whole system together. He did a great job with it. All proposed amendments should be presented to me in writing. Unless I hear an objection, I will dispense with the reading of the warrant, as you should all have copies in front of you now. We were now on the special town meeting. Article 1.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the fiscal year 2009 town budget by reducing the following departmental line items by the amounts indicated. And
Okay, we can just go with, as printed in the warrant.
Road Department wages, $25,000. Fuel pump maintenance, $25,000. DPW pensions, $11,120. Parking fines, administrator, $1,000. Assessor salaries, $12,000. Unemployment tax, $10,000. Blanket insurance, $7,500. Liability insurance, $10,000. COA dispatcher salary, $5,000. Workers' compensation, $6,200. And school incidentals, $65,000.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 1.
Article number made, having it seconded. In terms of explanation, the legislature cut the 2009 budget during the year. We were short money, as most towns were. This is a way of going back to line items that were approved at town meeting before, eliminating those items, applying it toward the deficit to balance the budget for the fiscal year that concludes tomorrow. And that's the reason for this article. It is Finance Committee approved. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify. Green cards, don't forget your green cards. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article number 2.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to close out the unexpended balances of the following warrant articles. DPW garage roof, Article 8 from 2001, $26,343.75. Charter expense, Article 10 from 2003, $1,474.88. Charter printing, Article 15 from 2004, $1,472.39. Police dispatchers, Article 8 from 2005 for $160.77. Tennis courts, Article 16 from 2005 for $65.47. Library fire alarm, Article 26 from 2007 for $390. Police cruisers, Article 8 from 2008, $341. Police union raises, Article 9 from 2008 for $743.12. Library boiler, Article 15 from 2008, $1,500. Library oil tank removal, Article 14 from 2009, $1,850. And SEMA oil tank removal, Article 17 from 2009, $1,500.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 2.
Article number 2 have been made and seconded, also dealing with unspent money from previous town meetings being reapplied now to balance the budget for 2009. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify by raising your cards now.
Almost.
Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The articles pass unanimously.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Moderator.
I'll second that motion.
Motion is made and seconded to adjourn the special town meeting. All in favor, please signify at this point. Thank you. And opposed? Okay, the special town meeting is now concluded. We'll now be proceeding on to the annual town meeting. The only difference from where we've been at is the annual town meeting requires a quorum of 250 registered voters. It is my opinion from this vantage point that we are in excess of 250 people, and unless I hear an objection, I will dispense with the formal taking of the count, and we'll proceed with the annual town meeting. There being none, we'll proceed with the annual town meeting. I won't read all the rules and regs and everything else that I just gave you. I just read them to you for the special, so we'll proceed right into the meeting. Article 1.
Article 1. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to receive the reports of the town officers.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 1.
Article number 1 have been made and seconded to receive any outstanding reports, questions, comments, or discussion. There being none, all in favor signify by raising your cards now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed unanimously. Article 2.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to fix the salaries and compensation of all elective officials of the town as provided by Chapter 41, Section 8 of the Massachusetts General Law as amended said salaries and compensation to be effective from July 1st of 2009 until June 30th of 2010, and to raise and appropriate a sum of money therefor.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 2.
Article number 2 have been made and seconded, dealing with fixing the compensation of elected officials of the town of Clinton. Finance Committee approved. Any questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, please raise your hand now, or raise your cards now if you're in favor. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article number 3, which is your town budget.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate from current tax levy the sum of $32,805,952 and to transfer and appropriate from overlay surplus the sum of $110,883 and to transfer and appropriate from the Ambulance Enterprise Fund the sum of $350,586 and to transfer and appropriate from the Ambulance Enterprise Fund retained earnings the sum of $32,158, and to transfer and appropriate from the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund the sum of $2,660,940, and to transfer and appropriate from the Rubbish Enterprise Fund the sum of $457,651, said sums to be used to defray the town charges from July 1st of 2009 until June 30th of 2010, as those charges appear in the Finance Committee report of recommendations.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 3.
Article number 3 have been made and seconded, dealing with your fiscal budget for the next fiscal year starting Wednesday, July 1st. What I'll do is I'm going to go over the budget as you have in your packet. I'll go by department, read them off. If you have any questions, comments, discussion, or whatever, please signify by raising your hand at the time when I'm on that budget article. If you think of something after the fact, and I've already gone past it, I will have a catch-all at the end to go back to anything you want to do. So don't get nervous about that. All right? Sir. Come right up.
Jim Tumalo, 32 Pondview Drive, Chairman of your Finance Committee. As you probably know, this was a difficult year for the budget. State revenues to us were down about 8%. Our local revenues are down over 10%. We spent a lot of hours reviewing the budget and the needs of every department. As you probably know, no departments are happy when we reduce their budget. I mean, I think that if you, as the Finance Committee does, we take the budget as a whole, not just a single department. I'd like you to really consider any changes carefully, because when you make a change, you're going to add something to one department, and you're going to have to take it away from another department. So, as you probably know, the Selectmen and the Finance Committee approved this budget. I'm asking you to approve the budget as presented. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go into the budget at this time. At the top of the page, Moderator. Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Moderator. Kathleen Sheridan, 118 Chase Street, Clinton. I move to reduce line item 122 Selectmen salaries by $7,495 and reallocate it as follows. I would like line 541, an increase in the Clinton Council on Aging Program Fund by $3,000. I would like line 610, increase the Library Technology Fund by $3,000. Line 510, increase the Board of Health Nurse Fund by $500. Increase the Board of Health Miscellaneous by $875. And line 291, increase emergency management by $120. That totals $7,495, leaving $5 for the selectman's salary.
Is there a second to that motion?
Mr. Moderator, I will second that motion.
Okay, I'll just go over that once again. There's a motion that's been made and seconded to decrease selectmen's salaries by $9,495, which will leave $5 in that account, and to dispense it, to redirect it, $3,000 to the Council on Aging Program Fund, $3,000 to the Library Technology Fund, $500 to the Nurse Fund for the Board of Health, $875 for miscellaneous by the Board of Health, and $120 for the Emergency Management Miscellaneous Fund. Questions, comments, or discussion under the amendment to the budget? Sir.
Jim Toomey, 32 Pondview Drive, Chairman of the Finance Committee. As I told you before, all of these budgets could use extra money. Let's go on the situation of the selectman's salary. For as long as I've been in town, the selectman is a paid position, an elected paid position. We didn't reduce anybody else's elected position salary except for the selectman 30%. I feel that, it's part of what we do here. It's not fair and equitable to reduce the selectman's salary down to zero and not any other elected official. Secondly, the departments he's given money, yes, they could use them. Typically, the Council on Aging, they had a reduction of payroll because they lost one of their people this year. If you look at real numbers, the Council on Aging lost about 1% in reduction, 1.5% reduction on their total budget, if you look at that in consideration. The library's down about 9%. I mean, we laid off school teachers, firemen, policemen. We didn't replace those to have those budgets at that level. I mean, there's probably better ways to spend this $7,500, but I'm asking you not to change it because A, it's elected a position, we paid that salary in the past, now we're going to single out the selectmen and say, hey, they don't get paid. We didn't do it to any other elected official. We didn't figure that was fair and equitable, and that's the way we see it. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussion?
Kathleen Sheridan, 118 Chase Street, Clinton. I am also a member of the Selectmen. We took a vote. We voted to rescind that pay. I feel that looking at the budget, there were targeted areas that took a big hit, one of them being the Council on Aging. We as a community need to start taking care of our elderly population. That area does a lot to outreach to the poor and to our older citizens. The library took a huge hit. We should try and take care of our library as well. With the budgets being cut everywhere, the fact that people are going to end up getting rid of their internet, they're going to need to access the public library. The Board of Health is a very necessary board. With swine flu, with other outbreaks that are coming back, to cut the nurses' budget, to cut their miscellaneous. I don't know how they're even going to get pamphlets out to anybody when something happens. And emergency management has always taken a hit, as well as the seniors and elderly, and I think we should just fund them with the money that we have extra.
Mr. Conlon.
Bill Conley Jr., 46 Winthrop Street. I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen, and I have the experience of having started working on this budget as a member of the Finance Committee. So I see it from a number of perspectives. I have no objection to Mrs. Sheridan's gesture of deleting the selectman's salary and distributing it. The problem I have is with pitting one department against the other. This town, the core of our town, the core of what happens here are our people, the people that work for us. And when this budget's done, the day after tomorrow, there's going to be a number of town employees, dedicated people, who will not have jobs in 48 hours because of this budget. And I would prefer that at least my $1,500 portion of the selectman's salary be allocated first, or any revenues that the town has that comes in as a surprise at the end of this budget should be allocated towards restoring those jobs, those teachers, firemen, and policemen who will be laid off in 2 days. They deserve your support. I have nothing against the Council on Aging. I have nothing against the library. I have nothing against the other departments that were addressed in the motion. But the day after tomorrow, there's a couple of firefighters, a couple of policemen, and a couple of teachers who have jobs today, and they won't have them tomorrow. And those jobs serve you. And I believe that any funding the town has should be allocated first towards restoring those jobs. Thank you.
Mr. Elworthy.
Mark Elworthy, 62 Highland Street. In the very last revision of our budget, we added an additional $3,000 to the Council on Aging to try to address the programs. That department in this budget is 1%, a little over 1% cut as a total with the budget. So if the Board of Selectmen were to forego their salaries with $7,500, the most difficult budget in this departmental budget for us was the fire departments. With the overtime and the staffing that they have and being down 2 men, Selectman Conley just mentioned the impact of personnel. If we need to reallocate funding, it should be going to public safety and with the fire department. It's all up to you folks as voters, but we've done a good job trying to balance this thing, and it's about prioritization. When the cuts are as deep as they are this year, it can't be even at a 4 or 5 or 6% cut. We had to prioritize public safety first and education, and then the other departments within the town. Not that they're less significant, but you have to make prioritization. And it starts with public safety, with police and fire, and DPW, and obviously our educational system. So I just ask if the town feels that they need to vote to take this salary away, which was voted on and approved. This budget was approved by the Board of Selectmen 4-0, with the salaries included. So if it does get, salaries are removed, you should be thinking about allocating that funding to the fire department. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Mary Ann Castillo, 48 Orange Street. I think it's a really grand gesture for selectmen to forego their salaries this year, but I think it sets a very slippery slope. I think it sets a precedent. And I think that we have to understand that these people do spend a lot of time, that their time is very valuable. We're very lucky to have them. And their salary is minuscule to the time they put in. But I'm more concerned about the precedent going forward. So I think it's important that we keep their salaries as they are.
Just as a point of clarification, so I can, because I didn't really point this out, excuse me. The allotment of $7,500 that's in your warrant for the proposed amount is actually a 30% cut from last year in and of itself. Okay, just so you know where you're coming from. Questions, comments, or discussion? Ma'am.
Christine Flaherty, 410 Water Street. I'm the library director. Most of you are used to seeing me up here for one reason or another. And tonight I really wasn't going to beg for money. I was going to throw myself on your mercy and say that the cut to the library is 9%. If we're looking at percents, they were in the paper the other day, and you could see what the percents were. For the library, that means we operate with part-time people as well as full-time people. It means the loss of one part-time person and another part-time person with fewer hours than the one that's going to be gone. It also means that, and this is the big thing, the cut is disproportionate. I've been trying to make that fact clear. The library runs under the Board of Library Commissioners in Boston. They set a minimum appropriation requirement every year, which no library in the Commonwealth is going to make this year. It's got to be 2.5% above the average of your last 3 years. Well, that's not going to happen. What they will do is give you a waiver. With the waiver, you will still be certified, and you will still get your state funding. We're due to get about $15,000 this coming year. This past year, we got $24,000. That money cannot be applied to your budget. It's to make up for the gaps that are in the budget. So if our cut is 9%, then we are going to probably not get the waiver from the state, because every library in the Commonwealth is looking for it. And the thing of it is, the Commonwealth, the Board of Library Commissioners figure, if your own town doesn't support you to a certain extent, why would they give you more money? And you do lose your certification, and that means that any of you that don't use Clinton Library, that might use another library on your way back and forth to work, or just because you're passing through, you're not going to be able to use those libraries. And I've been scoffed at and said, oh, no, it'll be okay. But it won't be. There are libraries, as we speak, being decertified, and the reason is disproportionate cuts. So I really appreciate Kathy's gesture. I appreciate it a lot, because it will add a little bit more to my budget, and then when we make our appeal to the state, we will have more money. In the budget, we'll have less of a cut. Yeah, target us and give us the money. That's fine with me. We are, in case you didn't know it, we are losing people, and when we lose people because we operate on small numbers of people, and again, part-time hours, we are going to be closing. As of July 1st, we will be closing Wednesday nights. That's mainly to save money on heat, light, and power. We won't be running air conditioning for 2 hours, and we won't be running the heat in the winter, things like that. But we will most definitely have to cut some hours. And then that jeopardizes our compliance with the other standards. We have to be open 40 hours a week. We need to have 16% of our budget spent on materials. All of those things get impacted when your budget takes such a big drop. And I keep saying that we can plug in with our grant money, but if we don't get the grant money, we can't fill the plugs, fill the holes, and neither will we be certified, which is very important. I mean, this town has been so supportive of the library. You saw you're getting money back on 3 things that you paid for in the last few years. We have a library that's in good condition. We have a safe library. And in terms of money, I don't know how many of you go out and buy an audio book, a book on CD. They cost between $60 and $100 each. People can't afford that. Money is tight. That's what we're for. We're there so you can come in and get a book. Come in. My computers are busy all day long, and contrary to what somebody thought, no one's going up to the schools to use their computers. They're in the library. That's where they use the computers free. And we have passes. So if you've taken your kids to Davis Farm or any of those attractions, you know how expensive that is. We have passes. You can come in, get discounts to going into all of those attractions, museums and kids attractions. Movies, if you can't go to the movies, we've got them. If you can't buy the movies, we've got them. You can have them for 2 weeks free. We provide services for everybody. We provide programs. All of that gets jeopardized when you don't have enough money to run, and all of that gets jeopardized when you don't have enough people. So we're down dollars, we're down people, and I'm afraid we're going to lose our certification. And I think for a library that's been around this many years, it would be a real shame to lose your certification. And the $3,000 makes a big difference. That adds like 1% more to my budget, 1% less of a cut. So when we go to Boston, we can say, okay, our cut wasn't 10%, it wasn't 9%, it's 8%, and it falls in line better with some of the other departments. So I would say, yay, Kathy.
Still under discussion under the proposed amendment to the budget. Sir, excuse me? Motion to move the question. Is there a second to that motion? Second is made. Okay. Requires a two-thirds vote. All in favor of you're not voting on the amendment now. You're voting on ending discussion with your cards. All in favor of ending discussion indicate by raising your hand now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. We've now ended discussion on the amendment to Article 3. If you vote yes on the amendment, you will put the selectmen's salaries down to $5 in total and dispense the funds to the five items that were listed to you before. Anyone not sure how they want to vote? Okay. All in favor of the amendment as presented, indicate by raising your card now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The amendment is passed.
Where the changes go?
Back to your budget. Under Board of Selectmen again. Finance Committee. Town Accountant. Board of Assessors. Town Treasurer. Tax Collector. Town Solicitor. Town Clerk. Conservation Commission. Planning Board. Zoning Board. Montechusett Planning Commission. Economic Development Office. Town Hall Custodian. Insurance and Miscellaneous. Parking fines. Police Department. Fire Department. Building Inspector's Office. Gas and Plumbing Inspector. Sealer of Weights and Measures. Electrical Inspector. Emergency Management. Dog Officer. School Department. Department of Public Works. Cemetery Department. Board of Health. Council on Aging. Veterans Services. Veterans Rents. Public Library. Parks and Recreation. Fuller Field Commission. Pensions. Then you've got some enterprise funds in the next page. Ambulance Enterprise Fund, Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, Rubbish Enterprise Fund, and you've got a summary at the end. Is there anyone who'd like to go back to a department? Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. David McIntyre, 32 Nelson Street. I'm the head of the Personnel Board for the non-union members of the town here. I just wanted to make first an inquiry, Mr. Moderator. I was provided with some information unofficially that I'd like to confirm. It is my understanding that as far as salary allocations, that the non-union personnel have been allocated a 1.5% increase for fiscal year 2010.
That's my understanding, yes.
Could I make further inquiry regarding the union salaries? I was also informed that the allocation regarding that salary group of salaries would be at 3%.
Depends on the union.
Yeah, that's basically
They
correct,
all have
yes.
different contracts, so I'm not sure what is in each contract.
Would it be possible to make inquiry regarding whether or not the funding for any of the unions was at 1.5%?
No, it was not.
It was not.
would it be in excess of 1.5%?
Yes.
Sincerely, with all due respect to the selectmen and the Finance Committee and those who worked on the budget, I'm sure it's been very difficult. And I have no doubt that the comments made earlier by the head of the Finance Committee are accurate and true, the great difficulty. But I respectfully make inquiry to the selectmen. Could anyone please provide me specifically with an explanation for why there's such a disparage percentage of differences between the union budgets allocations of approximately somewhere greater than 1.5% and 3%, and a fixed 1.5% for those who are not represented by unions.
Hey, I'll just say a little bit here. It's the union contracts were set by union contracts that are like 3 years long, and we're in the middle of that process. So they were entitled under the union contract that they signed to accept that. They had the opportunity not to accept it, but they have, and as is their right. And unfortunately, the other 30-some-odd members that you represent are not represented by a union. And I don't think anybody in the hall is going to call that fair, but that's the way it's set.
Understood. I respect. Please.
Go ahead, Mr. Conley.
Just a comment on the fact that the union contracts were mandatory, so to speak, the 3% or 2% or 4%, I'm not sure. But whatever was in their contract was mandated by the contract. It's optional as far as the non-union employees are concerned. And what happened is all of the unionized departments took hits in their salary accounts. While the remaining members of the departments will be getting the raises that they were given in their contract a year ago or 2 years ago, they took reductions in their salary accounts and they've lost personnel. In the non-unionized side of government, all those departments that received 1.5% salary increases also didn't have a corresponding reduction in hours or personnel in those departments. So while on its face, maybe a 3% versus 1.5% salary increases to the two different sides of the equation seems disparate, there's also a disparity in the way the budget cuts were absorbed. The fire department's losing 2 personnel. And the non-unionized departments are getting a 1.5% raise, and they're not losing personnel or taking a cut in hours or taking a cut in their personal salaries by losing the hours or the personnel.
A moment ago, we heard from the director of the library. I believe, if I heard her correctly, she indicated that they're reducing hours and that they have, in fact, lost staff.
I don't know that that's true or not.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess the other inquiry that I would make to the selectmen is, I apologize. The other inquiry that I would make with the selectmen relates to my understanding, and it could be skewed, would be that the funds that eventually became available to provide these salary increases did not become available until after the negotiations had been reached with the various groups and parties involved, union and non-union, and that cuts and so forth had already been established. I'm not saying that my interpretation is correct. I'm simply telling you what I've been told, and it's my understanding, if that's the case, that these funds that are being used to pay for these salary increases would more or less be the equivalent to found money. Would not hypothetically a 2.25% allocation across the board in all of these groups, ultimately the funds that you're dealing with would represent actually a net cost savings to the town without reducing any further staff. As I understand it, these negotiations were rendered before that money was found.
David, what I'm going to do is, in actuality, this budget is the Finance Committee budget. They're the ones, there's a lot of give and take between the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. But the budget that you have before you, proposed to you tonight, is actually in finality is the Finance Committee. And I believe the chairman can address some of those questions for you.
Mr. Moderator, if I may, David, Kevin Haley, 19
Kevin,
Barrow
wait,
Street.
but Jimmy, I want to have Jimmy speak first. It's their budget.
Basically, when we started the budget, when we received it from selectmen, all departments had a 6% cut. We went through the budgets. A lot of the assistants were being cut hours and so forth. So, the unions took their pay raise and lost people. We felt that cutting the hours and giving everybody a raise in the town hall was not the way to do it. So what we did is we reestablished those positions at full hours and gave them a 1.5% cut. May not be fair, but the way we see it, everybody's employed. We lost a couple part-time people in the library, but everybody's employed. We didn't cut any hours for any of the assistants. We weren't worried about the 6% reduction. We wanted to be fair and equitable, and we felt with them not losing any hours, not losing any personnel was a fair way to deal with it. Is it right? We felt it was right, and that's what we went with. Thank you.
I respect very much what the finance directors said regarding this topic, but just so that it's clear what my goal here is, it is not to undercut or disparage the collective bargaining or the validity of the contract process that is established between the unions and the town. I believe that that's fair, and whatever's been properly contracted for and negotiated with those representatives is appropriate. But let me say, as the head of the Personnel Board, representing the 42, I believe 41 or 42 non-union members, we respectfully submit, as it has been said collectively, this is unfair, and it would be most appropriate if the non-union personnel, along with the unions, and this is nothing against what they have negotiated for, I'm simply pointing out that a 2.25% pay increase uniformly applied to all departments would actually be a net savings to the town's budget. Thank you very much.
Mr. Elworthy.
Mark Elworthy, 62 Highland Street. As it was mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, if we take money from somewhere, we have to take it from somewhere else, right? So if we go from 1.5% to 2.25% or 2.5%, where it comes from is the number of hours that those employees are going to ultimately be able to work. We have to have a balanced budget. So the town hall employees with a 1.5% increase, fully staffed with their full-time assistants, is less of a pay increase, but it's not taking the personnel impact that those departments that have unions and collective bargaining agreements in place with the town, those departments are losing headcount, whether it be through attrition or actual layoffs of people. So that's their impact. That's how their budget within those departments was achieved. So town hall employees with full-time employees, in order for us to maintain and get to a balanced budget, we could only afford a 1.5% increase. If we were to go to 2.5 or 2.25, we could do that, but they're going to work less hours. So at the end of the day, the dollars still have to balance. So instead of being 35 hours a week, an employee who gets a 2.25% increase may only be working 30 hours a week or 25 hours a week. That's how it'll have to work out. So we can add increases to people's pay and then ultimately reduce their hours of work. But we can't, the money just doesn't get fabricated. It has to be a balanced budget. So if we increase those salaries, we have to reduce hours or take it from some other department. So just that's an informational point.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion under Article 3? There being none. This budget is the same dollar amount, even though it was amended, as was presented to you by the Finance Committee. Therefore, it is Finance Committee approved. It is not amended upwards by $10,000, and we will vote by hand on this question. Vote at this time. All those in favor of Article 3 as amended, please indicate by raising your cards now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. Article 3 is passed. Article 4.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the town treasurer and town collector to enter into compensating balance agreement for fiscal year 2010 pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 53F of the Mass General Law as amended.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 4.
Article number 4 have been made and seconded, being an annual article that requires the town treasurer and tax collector to put money they receive on your behalf in interest-bearing accounts. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor signify by raising your hand now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 5.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $4,800, said sum to be expended for social services in accordance with programs as approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 5.
Article number 5, raising and appropriate the sum of $4,800 to be appropriated by the Board of Selectmen and social service agencies. Approved by the Finance Committee. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please raise your hand, your card now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article number 6.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $12,000, said sum to be expended as the Town of Clinton's share to the Wachusett Health Education Action Team, WHEAT Incorporated, which committee is a delegate agency of the Montechusett Opportunity Council.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 6.
Article number 6, dealing with raising and appropriate $12,000 for wheat. Finance Committee approved. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all indicate by raising your cards now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. Article 6 is approved. Article 7.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend the administrative bylaws, adding the following new section. Mr. Moderator, I move to dispense with the reading of the remainder of the article.
Mr. Moderator,
Good idea, I think.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 7.
Okay. Article number 7, dealing with the Department of Public Works, a administrative bylaw change. I believe we have one amendment coming on that. Sir.
Mr. Moderator, I move to amend Article 7 in Section 5 under restricted water uses by striking item F and replacing it with the following. Instead of automatic sprinkler use, irrigation sprinkler use. The use of outdoor irrigation sprinkler systems is prohibited.
I'll second the amendment, Mr. Moderator.
Okay. We have a proposed amendment to the article under Section 5. What this proposed amendment does is the way it is worded on your warrant, it talks about automatic sprinkler systems, and just so that there's no confusion, that meant to be irrigation systems in your lawn, not sprinkler systems in large buildings. So it is being amended to reflect that it would just be, it would not reflect sprinkler systems in buildings, only sprinklers for lawns is really what that amounts to. Questions, comments, or discussion on that amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. That amendment is passed. Mr. McGowan.
I'm Chris McGowan, 36 Pondview Drive, DPW Superintendent. The purpose of this article, it's basically a DEP, not quite a mandate, but they strongly recommend that the towns all have a vehicle for limiting the use of outdoor sprinklers in case there's a declared water emergency. Obviously we have the Wachusett Reservoir, the Quabbin Reservoir. Generally speaking, we have plenty of water. This will probably never be enforced, except that sometimes maybe if we had a tank go offline and we had issues with the tank for an extended period of time, it would give us a vehicle to stop people from watering lawns. And there's different uses that are restricted differently depending on how extreme the situation is. But that's basically what the purpose of this bylaw is. It's just in case we ever have a problem and need to restrict water.
Any questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none. Sir.
Mr. Moderator, I'm Bill Latimer, 38 Low Street. This may be a quibble, but under Section 3 definitions, outdoor watering includes lawns, trees, and shrubbery. It doesn't say anything about gardens. It seems to me, I'm assuming that would want to be included if there were an emergency.
Including what?
Gardens. If there were flowers, vegetables, whatever, they're not really, as I understand it, lawns, trees, and shrubbery. Shrubbery is bushes, with grass, trees, and bushes.
Mr. McGowan, do you want to address that? The word gardens was not where, Chris? Okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
If you couldn't hear, Chris, this was taken verbatim from the DEP, and that's how they worded it. And there was one mistake that was corrected at the request of our fire chief. But this is as it is right now. So, any further questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor of Article 7 as amended, please raise your cards now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. Article 7 is passed. Article 8.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend the Town of Clinton personnel bylaws in the following sections. I move to dispense with the reading of the remainder of the article.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 8.
Article number 8 have been made and seconded. What this does, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing really, there's no meat to this article. It's strictly grammar mistakes that were made when it was worded. Proposed change under the first part, all non-union employees except elected officials, which is what the Personnel Board is all about, but it didn't state it. Under Part 4, Section 2.4, the last line, town regulations, it only said regulation. It should have said regulations with an S, so that's the amendment. So that's pretty much what this article is all about. It's more grammar, correcting grammar mistakes. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed unanimously. Article 9.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Article 1, Section 1 of the Administrative Bylaws of the Town of Clinton by changing the date for the annual town meeting from the last Monday of April to the first Monday of June, and by changing the date for the annual election of town officers from the first Monday in May to the second Monday in June.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 9.
Article 9 have been made and seconded dealing with the change in your dates for your annual town meeting and for your town election. The town election has always been held first Monday in May. The annual town meeting, which was scheduled to be in the last week of April, hasn't been for at least 10 years, mainly because of budget issues, waiting for the budget to come back from Boston to make sure we present a budget that is as balanced as it can be before you, so we do it once and not twice. This article would actually move the dates back. It would move the annual town meeting and the town election date back into June. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none. All those in favor, please raise your card now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. Article 9 is passed. Article 10.
Article 10. Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to impose a $25 fee for any check returned to the Town of Clinton for insufficient funds as authorized by Chapter 44, Paragraph 69 of the General Laws, effective July 1st of 2009.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 10.
Article number 10 have been made and seconded dealing with assessing a fine of $25 for a bounce check fee for anyone who pays town charges and then the check is returned for insufficient funds. This is on the request of your town treasurer. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none, all in favor, please raise your card now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is passed. Article 11.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to charge a fee of $10 for each written demand issued by the town collector to be added and collected as part of the tax as authorized by Chapter 60, Section 15 of the General Laws, effective July 1st of 2009.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 11.
Article number 11 have been made and seconded dealing with a fee of $10 for each written demand issued by the town collector for, I presume, overdue bills that have not been paid. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? My understanding is that it is currently a $5 fee. This would raise it to 10. Questions, comments, or discussion? There, ma'am.
Kathleen O'Malley, 50 Auburn Street, collector of taxes. There is currently $5 demand on any of the demands I send out. I would be raising it to $10. I did a little survey, most towns, we can do it up to 30. I do think because of the economic times as they are, $5 is plenty. It will not affect anyone that pays their bills on time. It would just be anything that goes out late, anyone that doesn't get their bill in on time. It also may give an incentive for people to pay the bills on time, get the money in quicker. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion under Article 11? There being none, all in favor, raise your card now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Article 11 is passed. Article 12.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to accept the provisions of Chapter 40, Section 22F of the general laws to allow municipal boards or officers to fix reasonable fees for the issuance of licenses, permits, or certificates and for services rendered pursuant to statute or regulation.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 12.
Article number 12 has been made and seconded. Dealing with allowing fees to be set for various municipal boards for licenses, permits, and certificates, and for services rendered. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? There being none, all in favor, please raise your card now. Thank you. And opposed? The article is passed. Article 13.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Article 1, Section 2 of the Administrative Bylaws of the Town of Clinton by deleting the requirement that warrants for town meeting be served by publication in at least 3 issues of the newspapers published in the town.
I'll second Article 13.
Article number 13 have been made and seconded. Okay, it would reduce from 3 to 1 the number of times it would be needed to be posted in the newspaper under the classifieds. When the bylaw originally existed, the item was printed 5 times a day, and things are pretty easy to do that. Now, if you're going to print in the item, you've got to get it completely set and done, and so it can begin, over 3 weeks in advance because the item is now a weekly paper. So that is the intention of this, along with the cost savings of only printing it once instead of printing it 3 times. Questions, comments, or discussion? Ma'am.
Gloria Parkinson, 90 Haskell Avenue. This is a question, and it is probably not totally relevant to this article, but it is. We are facing a situation when we don't know if we will have a town newspaper. So my question is there a way of amending this article so that information can also go online in other places and a more detailed build-up on the town website of all information, both for meetings and other town activities? I know that the New York Times currently has got a bid, looking for bids to buy papers, which includes the Worcester TNG, and I think that may have an impact on the item, but I don't know. But we are in a very precarious state in terms of newspapers in the town and getting information out. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Sir.
John Woodsmall, 17 James Street. And going with Gloria's suggestion, I make a motion to amend this article to insert "and Town of Clinton's official website" immediately following the local newspaper, so that it would read, "Warrants of town meeting shall be served by publication in a local newspaper and Town of Clinton's official website at least 7 days before the date of the meeting."
Article 13, there's a proposed amendment to add on the town's official website that the warrant be printed in that at least 7 days in advance of the meeting. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Questions, comments, or discussion under that? Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd just simply like to second the motion and offer support for it. I think it's a very good one. The internet is here to stay. It's nothing against the newspapers.
Any other questions, comments, or discussion on the amendment to Article 13 to include the town's website? There being none, we are voting on the amendment at this time to add the town website 7 days in advance. All those in favor of the amendment to Article 13, please indicate now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The amendment is passed, so we now have Article 13 as amended to include the town's website. Any questions, comments, or discussion under the article as amended? There being none. All those in favor of passing Article 13 as amended, please raise your cards now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. Article 13 is passed as amended. Article 14.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Article 1, Section 13 of the Administrative Bylaws of the Town of Clinton by changing the quorum requirement for the town meeting and the special town meeting. Amended Section 13, quorum. There shall be a quorum of 200 voters at town meeting. At a special town meeting, there shall be a quorum of 150 voters.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 14.
Article number 14 have been made and seconded. It's basically dealing with a reduction of 50 voters for each meeting that we have. The present meeting says we need, for the annual, we need 250. That would be lowered to 200. And for special meetings, we now need 200. That would be lowered to 150. I should also, just as a side, tell you that in an authority granted to the moderator, I am going to move up Article 17, which also deals with the quorum, to be voted on right after this article. I think we should put both articles together. Make more sense. So, are there any questions, comments, or discussion under Article 14 to reduce the quorum by 50? Sir.
Phil Boyce, 39 Centennial Street, and I'm your town clerk. The reason I put this in is a lot of times we're elected tonight, and I thank all of you for coming out, is a lot of times we're only missing like 15 people, 20 people. So I didn't want to drastically reduce it. I figured maybe try 50, see if that works. And that's the only reason I have it on here.
Still under discussion. Sir.
Mr. Moderator, I thank you for bringing up Article 17, but I'd like to make a motion to table Article 14 until after the discussion of 17 in the sense of things making sense.
Sir, your motion, I want to make sure I understand it, is to delay action on until after Article 17? Correct. Which would be next, because I'm just doing Article 17 next.
I understand. I just feel Article 17 is, for all better terms, a little more restrictive than it seems to deal with the more restrictive first than the less.
I understand.
It's more logical to me.
All right, is there a second to that motion? Okay. The motion is to yeah, we are. Okay. All right, there's no, I don't think so. Sir, your motion, is that to vote on 17 before 14? I want to make sure we understand it.
That is my intention.
Okay.
So we have a discussion on Article 17 prior to 14.
Okay. Is there any, that motion was seconded. Any questions or comments on delaying action on Article 14 till we deal with Article 17? There being none. All in favor of moving wait a minute. Delaying action on Article 14 and then going to 17, indicate by raising your hand now. Thank you, and opposed? Okay, it needs a two-thirds vote, and it may be there. All those in favor, again, of delaying action on 14 until we vote on 17, indicate now. Thank you, and opposed? Okay, that has passed. So we will now move, we just leave Article 14. I am moving up on my own volition Article 17 to be voted on at this time. So if we can put that into play.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, we the citizens of Clinton hereby request that the town will vote to change the administrative bylaws of the town of Clinton, Massachusetts, Article 1, Section 13. From a quorum, there shall be a quorum of 250 voters at town meeting. At a special town meeting, there shall be a quorum of 200 voters. There should be a quorum of 0 voters at town meeting. At a special town meeting, there shall be a quorum of 100 voters.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 17.
Article number 17 have been made and seconded, dealing with eliminating the quorum for annual town meetings from 250 to 0 and reducing special town meeting quorums from 200 to 100 voters. Questions, comments, or discussion under Article 17? Sir.
My name is Brian Coyne, 66 Fairmont Street. I just think that it's this is the greatest democracy. This is the greatest practice of democracy in the country. The people of the town get to come to town meeting and vote. I think to limit it to 0 to 5 people can come in here and vote on the town's business, to vote on bylaws, to vote on who gets laid off is a very slippery slope, as somebody was talking about in another article. I think that we should keep a quorum. I think we should even increase a quorum. I think we should encourage people to get to the meetings. I know it's frustrating. I've sat here and waited for meetings, but it wasn't my intention to get up here. I'm sorry. I'll take just a minute. All due respect to Mr. Boyce, he does a great job, and I understand his frustration, a lot of frustration of the people that sit here, but I think getting rid of the quorum would be a very dangerous thing for the town. Thank you.
Any further discussion under Article 17, sir?
Tom Callahan, 78 Wilson Street. I like, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. Brian, do agree that this is the greatest piece of our democracy. The article does not limit any participation. It welcomes everybody through the door. There have been numerous nights that I have sat here on a year-to-year basis, just waiting for the quorum for hours, taking the time out of certainly all of our lives for all the things that we have to do. We live in a hectic life. We have families. We have obligations. It's certainly understood. I think in this time of age, some reasons that people don't come is the fear of not making quorum. They don't want to, in essence, waste their time sitting here for an hour or so or coming back another night to do it all again, hopefully. Secondly, there are towns surrounding us, Bolton, Sterling, Grafton, towns throughout the Commonwealth that have 0 quorum. When they implemented it, their attendance increased. There was greater participation within the town meeting when a 0 quorum was presented. It doesn't limit who participate. It only allows that a meeting start on time, on schedule, on the date that was represented. I think with the motion that we just had this past now town meeting being pushed up from April to May only exemplifies the need to do that, because that gives us a smaller window of time to complete the fiscal matters before the new fiscal year begins. Finally, I lost my track of thought, excuse me. I think in terms, I support the 0 quorum. Other towns around us, one addition, somebody asked me why the 100 for the special town election. I find just for that reason, in the middle of February to have a special town election, the possibility of a small amount of people coming and passing articles or bylaw changes would certainly impact, and I think the 100 represents that. I think that where my thought was lost was based on that small percentage. Currently, we do have a hard time establishing the 250-person quorum. There have been times that that same small population has hijacked meetings. We've had business to complete, bridges, the last, was it last year? I think there was a quorum called twice. And there was one time we had to stop the meeting. Some of the articles weren't met. That was a small population that dictated town business. I don't think it's an effective way. I think we'll draw more people in by knowing that things will happen, and it would be prudent to attend and make all necessary accommodations to do so. Thank you, and I hope for your support on Article 17.
Still under discussion under Article 17. Any further discussion under Article 17? There being none, we will vote on that at this time. Again, this article would eliminate the quorum for annual town meetings and set it at 100 for special town meetings. All those in favor of Article 17 indicate by raising your hand. Thank you. And opposed? Okay, the article is defeated. We'll now go back. Sir? Motion is made to reconsider Article 17. Seconded. If you vote yes, you will be reconsidering an article you just defeated. If you vote no, it will kill the article for the duration of the meeting. Yes to bring it back, no to kill it for the duration. All in favor of reconsideration indicate by raising your cards now. All opposed? Okay, thank you. There'll be no further discussion of Article 17 at this meeting. We'll now move back to Article 14. Put it back in play if you would.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to amend Article 1, Section 13 of the Administrative Bylaws of the Town of Clinton by changing the quorum requirement for the town meeting and special town meeting. For the quorum, there shall be a quorum of 200 voters at a town meeting. At a special town meeting, there shall be a quorum of 150 voters.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 14 again.
Article number 14 have been made and seconded, which would effectively reduce the quorum requirements that exist now by 50 voters for all meetings. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Sir.
Kevin West, 21 Lane Ave. Question on the quorum. If quorum is to open the meeting, is there a reason legally why we can't amend it so that once the meeting's in place, it continues?
No, you can't do that. No, quorum, if you have a quorum, it can be challenged at any time. Sir.
Mr. Moderator, I move to amend Article 14 from reading 200 voters at a town meeting to 100 voters at an annual town meeting.
Just that one change.
What do you change the annual?
Okay, there's a proposed amendment to Article 14. Is that to lower? Wait a minute. So for the annual meeting, Mike, you would make that 150 as opposed to the proposed 200. Is that correct, sir?
100.
Okay. Okay, so the annual meeting would be reduced under this proposed amendment from the 200 that is written in your warrant to 100. And the special meeting would remain at 150, which it is proposed to you now. So if you take this amendment, the annual meeting will be 100, and the special town meeting would be 150. Any questions, comments, or discussion on this proposed amendment? Is there a second to that amendment, by the way? Okay. Any questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, all in favor of the change in the amendment, change in the article from 200 to 100 for the annual town meeting. All in favor of that change indicate by raising your hand now. Thank you. And opposed? Okay, that is defeated. So we're back to Article 14 as written in your warrant. Questions, comments, or discussion? There being none, we'll vote on Article 14 at this time. Again, this will reduce the quorum requirement by 50 for all meetings. All in favor of Article 14 indicate by raising your card now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Okay, the article is passed.
Okay, 15.
Okay, now we'll move on to Article 15.
We, the undersigned registered voters of the town of Clinton, submit this citizen's petition to have the following article included on the warrant of the next town meeting. To see if the town will vote to amend Article 12, Section 1 of the Administrative Bylaws to include the chairman of the Finance Committee in the membership of the Law Committee as stated below or act in any manner relating thereto.
I'll second Article 15, Mr. Moderator.
Article 15 have been made and seconded. The proposed article would add the chairman of the Finance Committee to the Law Committee that meets. The other members of the Law Committee are written in Section 1 under the article, and this article, if you chose to approve it, would add the Finance Committee chair to that particular Law Committee. Questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Sir.
John Woodsmall, 17 James Street. Mr. Moderator, I have a question. Is a member of the Finance Committee able to sit on any other board or committee underneath the town's bylaws?
Appointed, yes.
Appointed?
Yes, appointed only.
Would this not count as an appointed position?
Well, it would, but because he can sit on another appointed board, he could do it. He can't serve on an elected board.
Okay.
Or a paid position, neither of which exist here.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator.
Sir.
Kevin Haley, 19 Barrett Street. I just want everyone to be aware that if we add the Finance Committee chair to this, it will make an even number. Just so everyone is aware, there are votes taken.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion of the article? Sir.
David McIntyre, 32 Nelson Street. Might I make inquiry as to why this would be an appropriate addition to that committee?
Well, it's on by citizens petition. You know, the Finance Committee department does oversee the finances of the town. A lot of the business that the Law Committee performs deals with lawsuits against the town, things of that, and they do have a financial impact. So I think that's part of the reason why it's on there.
If it would be appropriate to include that individual, I think that all parties in the town should be represented. There is either a direct or indirect nexus of contact regarding the events and circumstances of all town committees and boards.
Well, all committee, if there is a meeting involving someone who's not on the Law Committee and it involves their department, obviously they're invited to the meeting to give their input.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Conley.
Bill Conley Jr., 46 Winthrop Street. I'd like to recommend to the town meeting that they support this article. I think the role of the Finance Committee, the town's financial interests are always at the table when the town's deciding to settle a lawsuit, and having someone familiar with the town's financial situation, most familiar with the town's financial, serving on that board and helping to make those decisions, I think is a wise investment for the town. I think the more people of that talent and caliber that you have representing you when decisions are made like that, the better off you're served. Thank you.
Attorney Gibbons.
Just for clarification, so everyone knows what the role of the Law Committee is. In reading right from the current bylaws, the Law Committee shall have the authority to prosecute, defend, and compromise through the town solicitor all litigation to which the town is a party, and to employ special counsel whenever in their judgment necessity therefore arises. So as town solicitor, whenever I need to, if we're going to decide to initiate a lawsuit, I just can't do that in a vacuum. I need to go and have a meeting before the Law Committee and get the Law Committee's approval. Same thing if the town is named as a defendant in a lawsuit. If I'm going to settle that case or compromise that case or proceed to defend that case, that authority has to come from the law committee, and that's under the bylaws as currently written.
Chief.
Mark Lovinger, 13 Long Edge Road. I've been on the law committee for 24 years, and I think we've done a fine job. Again, the extra person can create a stalemate. It's not about always doing about what the financial situation is. We always look out for the best interest of the town, and it's about doing the right thing. And I urge you to vote no on this article.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion, ma'am?
I'm Paula Nedved of 46 South Meadow Road, and I would ask that there be an amendment that if this passes, if the vote is 2-2, that the town solicitor be the one to be the tiebreaker in any issue.
Okay.
Have I submitted that properly?
Well, somewhat.
And is it legal? Especially being as the town solicitor.
Just for the record, there are generally 6 positions on the Finance Committee, so I think you meant to say 3 and 3. If
I'm
assuming
sorry,
we're at a full
yes,
complement,
I
but we get the idea of what you're saying. But Mr. Gibbons would like to address this.
I mean, there's currently 7, so you never have a deadlock. If we were to, I think if I understand, if we were to add the 8th member being the Finance Committee chairman, your proposal is I would then cast the deciding vote. I see that as a conflict of interest. I go before the Law Committee to get approval. You know, I certainly give my recommendations on what I think the Law Committee should do in terms of, you know, proceed with litigation, defend litigation. But I think to keep it as a, you know, a separate and independent vote, that I shouldn't be the one who casts a deciding vote.
Well, is it more likely that there be a tie if the Finance Committee?
Okay.
Well, I would like to think I could persuade them, all 8 of them.
Yeah. If there was a tie vote, it's defeated.
Right.
In order to pass a vote, it has to get a majority vote. So if an article, if they took a vote and there was a tie vote, that's like a no.
Okay. And, well, in that case, you know, my feeling is that an appointed person like the Finance Committee head should not be part of another board that's done fine without them. I don't see any compelling reason, personally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ma'am, are you withdrawing your motion? You withdrawing your motion?
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Conley.
Just for informational purposes, the Finance Committee, since it's the beginning of its existence, has been made up of an even number of members, and I don't recall of ever hearing of a problem with that being the case. Also, half the members of the current Law Committee are appointed officials and not elected officials. So just for your own information.
Okay, just a point of clarification. I mentioned to the woman that there was 6 members. There are 7 members, and this would be 8. And I was confusing that with the Finance Committee. My apologies. Mr. Levenger had it right. Sir.
John Woodsmall, 17 James Street. I think Mr. Gibbons raised an interesting point about conflict of interest. Because as the committee is currently constituted, the police chief and the superintendent of the DPW are both hired by the Board of Selectmen. And so you wonder how much of an independent judgment those 2 positions may bring, because their employment is based upon the Board of Selectmen, who is also on the Law Committee.
Just one selectman?
The chairman of the Board of Selectmen. To that end, and to solve the potential problem of there being an even number, I make a motion to amend the article so that Section 1 reads, "The chairman of the selectmen assesses school committee, finance committee, and board of health." Subtracting police chief, superintendent, and town treasurer from the law committee.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor to subtract? There's a proposed amendment to delete the police chief, DPW superintendent, town treasurer from the law committee. Is there a second to that motion? There is. Second to the motion. Any questions, comments, or discussion under deleting those three positions from the law committee? There being none, we will vote on the amendment to delete the police chief, DPW superintendent, and town treasurer from the law committee at this point. All in favor of the deletions indicate by raising your cards now. All opposed? Okay, that motion is defeated.
Mr. Moderator, would you move the vote? Move the article.
Second.
Move the question?
Move the article.
Motion to move the question of the proposed article because it reads as it sits on your warrant. There are no amendments to it. First of all those in favor of ending debate indicate by raising your card now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. We've ended debate on Article 15. All those in favor, this article, by the way, bears the approval of your Finance Committee. All those in favor of Article 15 to add the Finance Committee chair to the Law Committee indicate by raising your hand now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article is defeated. Move on to Article 16.
Mr. Moderator, we, the undersigned registered voters of the town of Clinton, submit the citizens' petition to have the following article included on the warrant of the next town meeting. To see if the town will vote to add a new section, Article 3 of the Administrative Bylaws of the town of Clinton, Massachusetts, regarding the policy for public comment and questions.
I'll second Article 16, Mr. Moderator.
Article number 16 have been made and seconded. This is a citizen's petition dealing with the Board of Selectmen's meetings and public comment policy, which would require a certain period to be held in the beginning of the meeting for public comment sections. Questions, comments, or discussion under Article 16?
Mariah Hunt Laguerre, 4 Walden Terrace. I would like to actually ask for the support of this particular article. I would like nothing better for our democracy to work the way it should every single time it does. The problem is that at a lot of the Board of Selectmen meetings, public comment is not allowed. And this article, Citizens Petition, actually brings the public comment back. I would always hesitate to actually ask and require elected board to have to do something, but in this case, public comment has been left out or put at the end of the meeting after things have been voted on. And there's no way for anyone to voice their opinion if things have already been voted on. So I ask you to support this article. Thank you.
Still under the questions, comments, or discussion under the proposed article. Sir.
Kevin Haley, 19 Barrett Street. The previous chair of the board, I just want the crowd to know that the last speaker was incorrect. There has always been public speaking at every meeting of the town selectmen, except for one meeting in the summer, and since then it has been added to every agenda at the end of the meeting, and it is up to the chairman of the board.
Further questions, comments on the discussion of the article? Just for clarification, there generally has been a public comment, I believe, at all but one meeting, as far back as I can remember. And it's usually towards the end of the meeting. For a couple of years, it was held at the beginning of the meeting. The present board is having it at the end of the meeting. You know, where it's held, I guess, is going to be determined by you. Any questions, ma'am?
Christine Latini, 127 Berlin Street. It's precisely for the reason that there was a meeting where there was no public comment allowed that caused an issue, I believe, that spurred this amendment to the town meeting article that you see tonight. I would ask you to consider it so that doesn't allow it for that to happen again. This does not mandate that there must be public comment at every meeting, but it does put a vehicle in place that allows for the public to have a means to have their voices heard when that board meets. Thank you.
Still under discussion under the article. Ma'am.
Hi, I'm Joyce Carpenter Henderson at 96 Haskell Avenue, here in the great town of Clinton. I'd like to underscore the point that I attended that meeting where there was no public comment. And this is a democracy. We have a right as town voters to speak our mind at select meetings. So I'd like this article passed. Thank you.
Still under discussion under the article. Sir.
Patrick Broderick, 44 Hill Street. I've covered the select board as a reporter for about 4 years, and I can tell you in that time I've never attended a meeting where there wasn't public comment. I do have a procedural question on this. If public comment is instituted at the beginning of the meeting and someone gets up and speaks, the selectmen take a vote on an issue, is that person allowed to get back up and speak, or is public comment completely over at that time?
Well, if they have public comment, they wouldn't be taking any votes during the public comment period.
Right, but generally if the selectmen are voting on an issue, there is a chance for the public to speak on that issue. So would that, if that person gets up and uses his 10 minutes of time, and then
Well,
wants
whatever
to
the
speak later
procedure
in
is
the
now,
meeting-
which I believe is they can usually speak to its particular article as it comes up, am I right? Correct. They can speak to that at that time later in the meeting.
So if they use up their full 10 minutes at the beginning, will they be able to speak to the issue?
Yeah, this is, this just deals with the public comment section only. The rest of the meeting will be run as it always has been, which would generally allow discussion under what they're considering, unless it's a hearing, and then they have by law, to have a certain period that you can speak within it. And when the hearing is over, then everybody can't speak, but except the selectmen. But as a general rule, they could still, the 10 minutes here, is there a time limit on this? Huh? The whole time is 30 minutes, and each person can only speak 10 minutes, I guess, and but that doesn't preclude them from speaking later in the meeting pertaining to a particular article or discussion that the selectmen are having on something later in the meeting.
Okay. So they can speak for their 10 minutes and then speak later in the meeting?
They can.
Okay, thank you.
Sir.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made to move this question, Article 16. What you're voting on now is whether to end discussion. All those in favor of ending discussion on 16 indicate now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. We will now vote on Article 16. All those in favor of the article all those in favor of Article 16 as written, please indicate by raising your hand now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. The article passes. Article 18.
We, the citizens of Clinton, hereby request that the town will vote to borrow an amount not to exceed $55,000 for the following activities relating to the determination the future site of an alternative energy infrastructure equipment.
Mr. Moderator, I'll second Article 18.
Article 18, dealing with the sum of $55,000 for relating to the determination of a future site of alternative energy infrastructure equipment. This is a borrowing article. We require a two-thirds vote for passage. Wait a minute. Mr. Tumalo first. There's one amendment coming that I'm aware of.
Finance Committee, Jim Tumalo. The Finance Committee has an amendment to the article to be numbered 6. No funds are to be expended without permanent site approval.
Okay.
Permanent site approval.
I'll repeat it. There's a proposed amendment to Article 18 that no funds are to be expended without permanent site approval. Meaning that they couldn't spend funds until the Planning and Zoning Board had reviewed it and they were okay with what is being proposed before they start spending money on it. So that is the proposed amendment to Article 18. Questions, comments, or discussion on the amendment? Sir.
John Woodsmall, 17 James Street. I would ask you to defeat this motion to amend because it's kind of hard to get site approval for something that you don't know if you want to put up there or not. It's kind of put in the cart before the horse, and it seems as a means just to defeat the purpose of the article.
Mr. Tumalo.
Jim Tumalo. We wouldn't want to spend the money to do the testing if we're not sure we can put a tower there to get wind. So there's no use testing if there's wind there if we can't put a tower there. So we need permanent site approval so that a wind tower could go there. I mean, that's the key. Why spend the money on a site when the planning board, the zoning board, or the state's not going to allow us to put a tower there? Thank you.
Still under discussion. Sir.
Terrence Zingano, 26 Front Street, and I'm the chairman of the Alternative Energy Committee in Clinton. We're a group of private citizens who were appointed by the Board of Selectmen to look into new and better ways of saving energy for our town. And we've...
Terry, excuse me. Are you dealing with the amendment now, or are you dealing
well,
with the
I guess I'm dealing with everything since I think it kind of all got meshed together somehow. I'm not sure.
Well, not yet.
We're not, okay. We're not looking for a wind turbine. We want to do this right. And so we certainly aren't looking to put in a $1.5 million turbine when we don't know if it's even feasible to use wind power in Clinton. All I can tell you is that you spend about $1.2 million a year in just electricity in this town, and we're looking for ways to cut that back. We want to do 2 movable towers to see if this is even feasible. There are grants out there, and we're going to go for them. So this could cost the town of Clinton $55,000. It could cost you absolutely nothing. But we need to start this. You see other towns doing this. Do you want to spend another year of spending $1.2 million, or is it time to invest in the future of this town? And we feel it's time. We know times are tough, but we think it's worth it.
Okay, thank you. Under the amendment, we're dealing with the amendment now, whether or not to include no funds are to be expended without permanent site approval on the article, and I want discussion to be focused on that. Mr. Elworthy.
In regards to the addendum amendment, excuse me, for this article, the Finance Committee has approved this article, and we understand the alternative energy savings and cost savings for the town. So this could be very, very beneficial for the town. The point or the matter that we are cautious about is that prior to expending $55,000, that could be reimbursed with grant money, by the way, next year or the year to follow, is that we just do the upfront work prior to the testing being done, go through the procedures within the town to make sure the zoning board or planning board have the appropriate site approvals for, 1, the testing, obviously, but 2, ultimately an actual wind turbine if it was to be a successful test. So we're just saying, go through the process of looking at the sites, that doesn't cost us $55,000 internally within the town first before you start spending $55,000. So the Finance Committee is in favor of this article, but we just ask that the Energy Committee and the Board of Selectmen do their homework first on the 2 or 3 sites that they look at, and they get the appropriate approvals for both the testing facility, testing tower, as well as what would become a potential wind turbine in a particular location. That's all we're asking for, and that's what the amendment states.
Any further questions, comments, discussion on the proposed amendment? Sir.
Bob Latini, 117 Berlin Street, Clinton, Mass. We have a study that's 2 years old showing there are feasible wind areas in town. We had a consultant come in about a month and a half ago who earmarked those same sites. And one would be up way on the end of Park Street, which we're hoping to get some type of a lease from the state to put it up by the pumping station there. Another one is either Rauscher Farm or Mulberry Drive, both on town-owned land. We cannot go and get a permit for a tower for a wind turbine before we have the studies done to know whether our feasibility studies or our recommended sites are the right place to have these towers placed. These are temporary towers. They run from 135 to 165 feet. They go up like a monopole would be for like SEMA would put up for a communications tower. And the $55,000 is small money to pay for what we're asking to do. This thing over a 20-year period would cost the town $200 a month. It's not a lot of money when you're considering saving $1 million a year. Please vote for this article without the amendment, because the amendment completely handcuffs us to what we want to do. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments, discussion under the proposed amendment to Article 18? There being none, we'll vote on the amendment to Article 18 at this point, stating the amendment is to add, no funds are to be expended without permanent site approval. All those in favor of amending Article 18 to include that phrase indicate by raising your card now. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you. Okay, the amendment is defeated. We're now back on Article 18 as printed in your warrant. Any questions, comments, discussion on the article as a whole? Just for the point of clarification, this $55,000 would come under the jurisdiction of the selectmen. They would appoint a committee, and that committee would report to them. So, just so that you know that. Questions, comments, or discussion under the Article 18 as written? There being none. Ma'am. Mr. Boyce?
Gloria Parkinson.
Excuse me, Gloria. Would Mr. Boyce, get somebody get Mr. Boyce for me? Phil, would you start bringing the people forward for a ballot vote?
Gloria,
I'm sorry, Gloria, go ahead.
Okay, Gloria Parkinson, 90 Haskell Avenue. I'm also a member of the Alternative Energy Committee. One of the things that we discussed when we were looking at the cost of doing this feasibility study, which has already been addressed, the need for it, and I thank the FinCom for their support of this article. Mike Ward did a really excellent thing for the town, starting, I think it was in January. He arranged for a bulk buying of electrical power for certain of the major electrical users in town. And I'm thinking about the water infiltration plant. At the same time, the school committee also has a bulk buying electrical deal, which is called EDCO. But leaving the school committee, the school buildings out of it for a moment, if we look at the deal that Mike Ward pulled off, There are buildings in town since January that have been getting a considerably reduced electricity bill. I can speak because I'm a library trustee and our bill has gone down. Thank you, Mike. We estimated on the Alternative Energy Committee that these savings since the contract with, that Mike set into motion, that it was about $5,000 a month, I believe, is the correct, somewhere in that area, has been saved with this bulk buying deal. And what we are suggesting is that some of that savings could be also used as part of the $55,000. But again, our intention and our very strong intention is to go for the grants, and we've already been talking to various entities about getting grants so that it would cost the town absolutely nothing to do this feasibility study. Thank you.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion under the article? Sir.
Peter Taylor, 45 Robert Street, Clinton. I have no problem with the merits of this windmill project. I believe Terry and Garlow and Gloria, etc., have some very, very valid points about this. My question is on the $55,000 in this time of economic crisis and budget cuts, etc. The basic question is, should we spend $55,000 to have tests for this wind generation now to get the answers about what are the maximum costs, how many days per week, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? I believe those answers have already been made. They were made years ago, because all these green technology companies not only are doing the, quote, good thing, saving the planet, etc., but they're businesses. And as businesses making proposals for wind generation all over this country, with all that goes into it, as far as getting permits, possible lawsuits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they have mapped every inch of this country as far as the best places for wind, what are feasible, rating them, et cetera. With all due respect, the Alternative Energy Committee has a lot of internet savvy and a lot of engineering too. If you would get on the internet and search for these studies that are already out there, it would not cost us $55,000. And if you can research and get these studies and get the answer, if you make that effort and you cannot get the answers that you want, then by all means, please, then let's think about spending $55,000. Thank you very much.
Any further questions, comments, or discussion under Article 18? Motion to end discussion. Somehow I'm not surprised. All those in favor of ending discussion, please indicate now. Thank you. Opposed? Okay, we're now going to do a first in Clinton Town meeting, so we're going to have a ballot vote. This article is disapproved by your Finance Committee. It is a borrowing article. It requires a 2/3 vote for passage because it's borrowing, and we're doing a ballot vote because it's disapproved by the Finance Committee. We've ended debate on the question. These cards, you're going to come forward, and you're going to show this card. And some of the women up front have punchers. They're going to punch number 1 on your card. Then that will allow you to they will give you a ballot. You can drop it in any box, the ballot, You just, cut it in half. It says yes and no, rip it apart, and submit the one, the yes or the no that you want for the article. Yes, if a yes vote is for the article, a no vote is against it. Are there any questions? Okay, why don't we, well, we'll try just coming up the aisles, vote, and then move back to the back of the hall with your green card.
Might as well wait. I used to be able to run right up.
Goodbye, Norma Jean. Though I never knew you at all, you've had the grace to hold yourself when those around you crawl. Crawled out of the woodwork and they whispered into your brain. They said you on the treadmill and they made you change your name. It seems to me you lived your life like a candle in the wind, never knowing who to cling to when the rain set in.
keeping in mind the article needs a 2/3 for passage. 162 yes votes, 83 no votes, which comes to .661, and the article is defeated.
Mr. Moderator, I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, please indicate now, please. Thank you. And opposed? Thank you for coming, ladies and gentlemen.
Who cares about the clouds when we're together? Just sing a song.